ability. So, first public input, I'd like to welcome Rachel from the Eastern Bays Songbird. Welcome, Rachel. And just while Rachel makes her way up, Councillor Simpson said that we would thoroughly enjoy a presentation from Rachel. Just in defence of our staff, we've got a few little IT problems today, so hopefully things will go smoothly. So Rachel, you've got about 5 minutes for the presentation, and then there may be some questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Sure, thank you for having me. I'm here to talk about the Eastern Bay Songbird Project, which is a community conservation trapping project that's benefited from Auckland Council funding. I'm actually not in the Eastern Bay Songbird Project. I'm a professor of statistics at the University of Auckland, and I run the Catch IT software system, which is a computer system for community groups like the Eastern Bay Songbird to record their trapping data, which means because we've got this data capture, we can start to find out how the projects are going and how well the money is being spent. So the Eastern Bay Songbird Project is only 2 years old, and it operates from Arake to Glendowie. It's grown to 1,500 traps and bait stations over that time. It focuses on residential areas and reserve fringes, and it's benefited from quite a bit of funding from the Auckland Council and the Ōrākei Local Board. And special thanks to the people mentioned, including Councillor Dudley Simpson here today. The number of traps and bait stations over time, just to show you how it's grown over 2 years, it's really quite an extraordinary expansion from almost nothing 2 years ago to 1,500 today. And I don't know if this, unfortunately it seems the video isn't playing, but I don't know if you can get it. If you just click, it should work. Try that again. Doesn't matter if not, but if it does, if you just click on it. Nope. Oh well. Here is the indication that the project is going to fill in the gaps between the reserves that are pre-existing. So here is the display with and without. Unfortunately, that doesn't work either. So I'm sorry, that it doesn't show the project as it is there.
So do you want to just explain? Just take a moment, because it is a shame that it's not working. I know people have been trying this morning. Something has happened, as they often do. So what are you wanting us to get out of this bit of the
so what you would see if the picture was working, and it's a shame because what you would see is the whole area is absolutely smothered in traps from Arake to Glendowie. If you can imagine 1,500 small dots in that area, that's what it should look like. So I'm sorry that you don't see that. Is this now gone?
If anyone can sort it, this crack team can sort it, so we'll hopefully get it going. No, Suad, not going to happen. Right,
oh, actually, could I just take it back one? Perhaps if I take it back to the non-slideshow display, you might see if you press escape and go. I'll just go through a couple of slides. No, I'm sorry, it's not showing. My apologies.
Okay. So okay. We've got the 1,000 dots.
There's 1,000 dots.
Yep.
Yes, which is a real shame you can't see. Yeah. So just to continue there. Oh, I see it's being converted to PDF. That's the problem. Could it be shown in PowerPoint?
If you keep explaining, and
yes.
we'll just have a go.
If we could keep scrolling through, oh, right, that's it. So now we've got it straight. So I'll just rush through so I can show you the video. Now here it is.
Yay.
Here's the growth of the project over the 2 years. And you see these traps appearing as we go in time, and how they're covering the whole suburbs now. So yes, this is what you were missing out on. Anyone who needs a measles outbreak, we've got one here for you. And the project is filling in the gaps between the long-running existing reserves. So here's the with and without. And as you can see, it's quite an extraordinary social movement for conservation now. So all these people are involved in this. And to speak of how much they've caught in terms of pest catches, for the first year it was running at about 1 catch per day, and then year to date 1,000 catches. Mostly they're rats and possums, a few mice, hedgehogs, and the odd stoat. But to see what the impact is on the pest catchers in the local reserves, that's going to tell us what the community residential project has actually achieved. So I'm going to focus on 2 reserves, Keeper and Selwyn Bush, where we have the longest run of data for, and those are the red dots there. The new residential project is the blue dots around the houses and the green dots along the railway line. And you can see the reserve is now buffered by all of those additional traps. So let's just see what has happened to catches in the reserves over that time. We're going to start in August 2012. And the annual catches of rats in the reserves, it bounces around as you would expect, but then it takes a big plunge in the most recent year, which is the one that's been affected by the community project. And from a statistical perspective, just to show you the bounds of variability, that's where we would expect ordinary bouncing around to occur. So what we've actually seen is something beyond ordinary variability. It's what we call statistically significant. The same thing has happened with possums. We have to assume that something extraordinary has happened, and that thing would be the residential project. So that shows you the same effect with the possum catches in the reserves. But now we can see the wider area. If we look at all of the parks, we've got data going back to 2015 for these, and we now look at possum catches in all of those parks. There's an enormous decline in the most recent years, so we can say that there's been a real achievement there. And for rats, a small decline as well. But we don't see the same effect for those species that are not targeted by the community project. So that gives us a strong belief that it is, in fact, the community project that has caused the good effects that we see in the reserves. So it's a good news story. After 2 years, the residential project does seem to have led to a large drop in the pest numbers in the local reserves. So thank you very much for your attention, and apologies for the technical problems.
No, our fault. Well done. That's fantastic. And when Desley spoke to me about this, she said this is such a good example of what's happening in a suburban area, and just reminding people that this great work doesn't just happen out on the islands. It doesn't happen in remote and wild places. This is happening right in the middle of suburbia. It's fantastic. We've probably got time for a couple of questions if need be. It's pretty self-explanatory. Leslie, and would you like to move the vote
I'd
of
be
thanks?
delighted to, Madam Chair. I will start by saying I've never been so pleased to see so many red dots all over this Ōrākei ward in my life. No, I just want to say how important, sorry, forgive me, I just couldn't resist that. So thank you very, very much. I want to have a vote of thanks in you, because actually this is statistical data, and as you say, you're not actually part of the project itself. You're part of an independent research from the university that actually gives us that tangible data. And I think we should work together a lot more on a lot of our projects, because you have the software, you have the ability to track that data, and I think we should tap into that a lot more. So thank you very much. She's presented to our community, and I just felt it was really important for us to see quite absolutely tangibly what the targeted environment rate has done as a result of all of you supporting that. So thank you very much, and thank you for the presentation.
Right, that's been moved and seconded. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Fantastic presentation. Really appreciated it, Rachel. Keep up the good work. Our next presentation is from Rupert Wilson and Emma Waterhouse from the wonderful Glenfern Sanctuary. Warm welcome. Oh, hang on. It's not Rupert and Emma. No. Not that I would expect. I would.
Madam Chair, councillors, kia ora. Thank you for the chance to address you. Apologies from Emma Waterhouse, she was unable to make it today. My name is Rupert Wilson. I'm one of the 7 trustees of the Glenfern Sanctuary Trust. The Glenfern Sanctuary Trust was formed in March 2017 to manage Glenfern Sanctuary Regional Park at Port Fitzroy on Aotea Great Barrier. At that time, the Trust entered into a management agreement with Council, which has now been operating successfully for 2.5 years. Let me give you a brief summary of Glenfern's progress to date. But first, I acknowledge the fantastic support of Council, and in particular of this committee, Madam Chair, and of the Northern Regional Park staff. The support of Scott and his team has been quite remarkable. To date, the model has worked. The Trust, a private sector charitable trust, has been financially viable and should continue to be so. Glenfern has had some major infrastructure and asset upgrades, the latest being the current completion of the new Glenfern Wharf at Port Fitzroy. At an early stage, the Trust engaged sanctuary operations managers who have proved to be very capable. And of course, the Trust has had a constant focus on pest management and biosecurity. The Trust has rebranded Glenfern and now has a vibrant social media presence. Importantly, the Trust has diversified its funding sources. However, primary purpose, Madam Chair, of this address is to update the committee on 3 proposed projects for Glenfern. First, the development of a student residential centre with Hillary Outdoors. This centre will provide student courses with greater emphasis on conservation and environmental education projects than traditional outdoor programs. The residential centre will be able to house 36 students and 3 adults and will particularly suit the longer 4 to 5 week programs provided by Hillary Outdoors. Secondly, the development of a park visitor, interpretation and research centre. The Trust and the local board have a vision that this visitor, interpretation and research centre on a council-owned regional park has the potential to be the flagship for the future direction of conservation on Aotea Great Barrier. And thirdly, the development of accommodation for volunteers. This is crucial for the biodiversity and biosecurity goals of the sanctuary. Glenfern does not have the catchment of volunteers who can work at the park and go home at night that Tawharanui and other Auckland regional parks have, which is such a valuable resource. The potential development of an environmental education centre at Glenfern has been on Council's radar for the last 3 years. In June last year, a study commissioned by the local board confirmed the feasibility of an education and research facility at Glenfern. And in April this year, the local board made a further grant to fund the development of a business case for the projects. Since then, the Trust has undertaken a pre-application planning process, which has confirmed the feasibility and likely success of consenting at Glenfern. The Trust has now engaged Strawn Group and other consultants to prepare design and costings to enable a planning application to proceed and to inform the preparation of a business case. Strawn Group designed and project managed the recently completed lodge on Motukarakura Island. The Trust sees this brief presentation as a heads up for the committee of the current status and likely future direction of the projects. In that regard, the Trust plans to have the business case finalised and application for consents lodged in the first half of 2020. This allows for the extensive consultation which will be required of the proposals, especially with iwi, local residents and interest groups. The Trust will be returning to the committee for its formal approval of the projects at the stage the design and costings are further advanced and the business case is finalised. Council's approval of the projects for its regional park, along with successful planning consents, are two critical milestones to achieve before applications can be made to potential funders. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this morning. Madam Chair, all of the Glenfern trustees send you their very best wishes for the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for taking the time to come and give us that update. We had the most remarkable visit, I think. Sandra, Mike, not too sure if Chris was there, Alf, there was a group of us who came, and I think completely got the vision and the picture for this remarkable place. So thank you. This sort of closes an important loop. Just check if there are any questions from any of our members. No, that was very clear and very concise, and I think probably the thing that is the most heartening is that you've got a very clear vision for where you're going. It is just that thorny issue of ongoing funding that I'm sure, I can't speak for this, but I'm sure the people around this table and the staff who are here will continue to support you to source funding and to be supported in any way possible. So, Councillor Lee.
I thank you, Madam Chair. I should acknowledge the trustees and Parks Management here for the wonderful job they are doing at Glenfern Sanctuary. It's an unusual arrangement in one of the most remotest parts of the Auckland region, but it's actually succeeding very well, and that's very much down to the dedication of the trustees and also the dedication of the regional parks rangers and management that are working so closely with local trustees. So Rupert, congratulations. I've been out there several times. As you know, I am involved as a trustee on the neighbouring island of Motukaikoura, and you're our nearest neighbour, and we're working collaboratively with you on a common mission on it. And I can tell you as well, things on Motukaikoura are going very well indeed in terms of our common enemy, the rodent. Very well indeed. This has been a difficult year, but an exceptional success in controlling them, and we're working closely as a backstop for your own operation. So again, congratulations, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Kia ora, thank you. Councillor Lee, would you like to move the thanks? Lovely, and Councillor Fletcher will second. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you so much. This is not a good meeting for rats, I tell you. Rats and rodents are certainly not the issue, or they are the issue du jour, but they certainly aren't the favoured species. So moving on to our next public input, and it's wouldn't be Environment and Community Committee meeting without the wonderful Boopsie Moran. So warm welcome, Boopsie. When Boopsie asked to speak in open forum, I thought, I think we've heard from Boopsie quite a lot lately. And then she told me, but hang on, there's just a little bit more. So warmest of welcomes, Boopsie. And I think it's our chance to actually acknowledge you, because it's really hard work staying out in the community and pushing a very large and often unyielding system to do what the community is trying to do on a very small scale. And you are there, unrelenting but relentlessly positive, and for that we thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Ko rangitoto toku monga, ko waitemata toku moana, ko Boopsie toku ingoa, nore rā, tēnā koutou katoa. This is a presentation kind of as an update from the June presentation regarding events and street parties, basically just community events, really. And so it's really good to see the rats and the plantings, because I work more in like social capital for the youth and the elderly who can't necessarily be planting and doing rats, but they need to be out in public space. So it's good to see what community capital can do, because it's basically about how we as a council can support our community capital. So community capital, frequently called social capital, is designed as the banked good with the help that helps build trust between various groups within a community. An important component of a strong civil society, community capital is built in the third sector by nonprofits and voluntary associations, and that's the quote you can read. So I presented on the Western Community event, and after presenting here, I went directly to my local board and did the exact same presentations to get support from them on how we work as a local board and as a wider community for council. And we found out that, luckily, local board requested Auckland Council officers provide a response of how community empowerment approach could be applied to community events. So it said the Auckland Council event facilitation team were unable to provide Auckland Council, volunteers to assist in any external delivered community or commercial event. So as someone who does small community events, I wasn't quite sure what external or internal was. And if it is the case, then it's not clearly defined, so that was awkward for me to understand. And this was the park site where we just had a community event. And the other interesting bit was about, it was booked for 3 months, and I found it when I met, and they were lovely, the facilitation team. There are 2 people that are Waitemata, but they don't have any real clear guidance on the land advisory event facilitation teams, so, because they're all different. So they said through consultation with the land advisory event facilitation team was advised a proposal is being considered by the local board for utilization of Western Park for a container holding bike rentals, which I was aware of because I go to a lot of meetings, but I didn't know that it could hold the entire park for 3 months for any event permits, if that makes sense. So I think there's just a cross of access and understanding between areas of council when an entire area could be booked for that long based on that one container, and that's why it was declined. For power sources, the power sources are just for maintenance and parks work, but after the meetings, they said that they would look into identifying locations that public could access. And for me, it's not just about Waitemata. It's about if someone wants to have a little concert with a little speaker, it saves them $200 on a generator to plug in. And it also means that if you have a school band and you just want to plug in at a park, it's there, and it's also carbon neutral, because every time you use a generator, which is often required for all public spaces in council, you're causing carbon emissions. So why not start looking into that as an option? If you can plug in a mower, you can plug in a concert, is a philosophy I was looking into. So as far as equipment goes, people brought their own, and I was donated some. But before I made the event, I met some council people, not local board people, who said there might be equipment available. The sad thing is it's unavailable January to April, which would be the key time communities would want access to that equipment. So there was not enough inventory available. Following that meeting, they're looking into possibly purchasing more equipment for local groups to access. That was just a street closure. So the event facilitation for next time, they're now looking into the community placemaking budget for a community empowerment unit to work together and gather funding for more local groups to access equipment and have facilitation. And from that meeting with local board, I met with the facilitation team to talk about my next event, which was a street closure, which I'd waited 8 weeks to find out from AT if I could be part of their trial, but they only had 3 for the entire Auckland region, one of which is High Street. So after waiting 8 weeks, I missed my deadline for if I was going to do it myself with community groups. So in missing that deadline, I met again and we pushed a new date, which means that for 9 more weeks, I, as a relief teacher and mother of 2 children, have to find the time to research traffic management contacts on my own with no real support. So if we could find a way in the next 3 years to simplify both the local events processes and the road closures in a timely manner for volunteers and social capital, I think people would work together more with council. But when we're given long list of things I'm not a professional at, it makes it very awkward to continue trying to do this. So That was just my presentation. Kia ora rawa atu. Many thanks from your community. Happy for questions.
Thank you, Boopsy. I just wonder sometimes where you get the energy to keep pushing. I hope that for those who are going to be here in the next term that we do start to unpack the complexity of the size of us and remember that sometimes small community things can happen and should be spontaneous, and if they can happen without 78 forms to be filled in and 74 weeks of pre-notification, that would be great. Questions? Councillor Watson. Sorry, Councillor Watson.
Thank you very much, Bobsy. I just more a question for you, Madam Chair, where Bobsy's come up with some very pragmatic suggestions here that have certainly struck a chord with me. I'm just wondering what we can do, what process we can follow now to convey them to the relevant Department of Council.
I think that's a really good question, Councillor Watson, and I think we need to put this together and go to our Community Empowerment Unit, and Boopsy's already been working closely with some of this group. I think we need to look at what we need to vary within the organisation. What are some of the key hurdles? What can we change easily? And what do we need to work with our local boards on so that we don't keep putting these huge hurdles in place for small, intimate community events that should just be able to happen slightly spontaneously without so much red tape around them. So we will commend this to our empowerment unit. Hopefully there will be councillors who work with Boopsy and take up this cause. It'd be great if you could, and some of the others.
Well, and through the chair, it's just once I sign that contract, even if it's a $200 grant, I sign away that I'm doing it legally. And that's where the problem comes. If I get a grant and I want to do a small event, I have to go through the events process. And that's where it gets really difficult to stay within budget.
I think the issue simply turns on the fact that we are not sufficiently able to scale, whether it's the Santa Parade down Queen Street or an event for a small group of people happening reasonably spontaneously, we still seem to be applying the same amount of bureaucracy. And I think what Boopsy's asking for is some political help, support and advice to work with our staff. The door is not a closed door, it's an open door, but we just need to make sure that we join up the complexity of us. Councillor Darby.
On this, can we just check on the statement of intent that went to Auckland Transport? Because we specifically, the Mayor and I spoke about this, Deputy Mayor too, we specifically had words in there in the statement of intent. It was the amended version, I think, from memory. It made it clear, and the words were something along the lines that Auckland Transport support community groups in open streets events, maybe. So I think we probably need to follow up from the executive officer's desk and find out what Auckland Transport put in place to reflect that direction.
Okay. I think that's something we can do straight after this meeting, Councillor. I think it'll be very useful to follow that up. It'd be great to get something sort of tied up before the end of this term for Boopsy.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah.
Awesome. Other questions? If not, and welcome, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, I didn't see you arrive. I will move that we receive the presentation from Boopsy and thank her. And Councillor Watson will second. We're going to get round that table and sort it out and get some stuff done in the next couple of weeks. We won't add that to the recommendation, we'll just do it. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you.